We're delighted to be with Isabel Wilkerson. She has written The Warmth of Other Suns. I'm Paula Gordon. Bill Russell.
You use Dr. King's experience in Chicago as sort of a symbol of the real challenges and the discrepancies that, again, bring us to today. Jim Crow, state-sanctioned terrorism, and state-sanctioned legally, was endemic in the South, the former Confederacy. It was less so in northern states, not exclusively, but much less so, to the extent that it was not legally recognized. There were not
Slavery
laws.
was, but Jim Crow wasn't.
Well, there were not laws that were Jim Crow laws in most of the northern states. However, Martin Luther King went to Chicago and...
This is 1966.
He ran into something that was hard that was one of his biggest challenges, is because it was invisible and not acknowledged. And Mayor Richard J. Daley was quite wily and was ahead of him. He was not about to fall into the trap that Southern sheriffs had fallen into. He made it so that they could never get the attention that they were seeking as they were trying to open up housing and the stark segregation that was plaguing many of the northern cities. He found it extremely difficult to be able to get a toehold in Chicago, because they would make sure that whenever there was a protest, they were just as polite and as nice as they could be.
This is the Chicago cops we're talking about.
The Chicago cops.
Who then had a police riot in 68.
Blanketed these protests. So they kept anyone, and there were many people who wanted to hurl epithets and throw rocks and all at them. They did everything they could to keep that from happening. So,
well, but it did happen. It happens that I dropped out of college to go be in Chicago that Freedom Summer, and yeah, they did everything they could, and yes, Dr. King went away feeling that we lost. I mean, it was pretty straightforward that Daley won that round. But there was Marquette Park, there was Cicero, there was genuine violence, and everybody feared for their lives.
Absolutely.
And, I mean, cars are burned, people are threatened, and if you went to one of those things, you knew you might not come back. So it wasn't all niceness. It was as virulent in its own way as the Jim Crow era was. It just had this other patina. And Dr. King, it radicalized him in very interesting ways. Going back to this class caste, I think that was a defining moment for Dr. King to say, ooh, this is bigger than I thought it was. Now, that's my opinion, but...
No, absolutely right. I mean, it was at Marquette Park that things got out of control. The police did not calibrate correctly the numbers of people. What Daley's goal was to keep it out of the papers and not to draw attention, to make it go away. And at Marquette Park, he couldn't do it because the groundswell of resentment toward him and toward what they feared would be the onward march of African Americans who were literally bursting at the seams in the neighborhoods that they were confined to would get to where they were in Southwest Chicago.
Well, I say this because this is the bigger story that you're telling. You're telling a particular story, and you're telling a larger story about America that's equally important to the specifics of this migration.
Well, and these were immigrants. I mean, you had essentially East Europeans in Marquette Park with Confederate flags.
Yes.
What's going on here?
Or Dearborn, Michigan, that is more...
Or Cicero. But these, I mean, this is the immigrant against the immigrant.
Which is as old as America.
That is, to me, one of the great tragedies of the 20th century that really rarely gets talked about. And that is that you had streams of people coming from all over the world and from the south of the United States, converging in these cities, doing essentially the same things, working in the slaughterhouses, working in the auto factories.
Lured lured to them.
Lured for the very same reason.
These people were wanted at one point. All of them
were wanted one time. One group was allowed to join unions. The others were brought in as strikebreakers. So you have automatic tension and conflict there. You also have the enduring assumptions made about African Americans that went with them, that they met when they arrived in these cities.
And they were not happy assumptions.
They were not happy assumptions. They were negative assumptions. And so you had immigrant against immigrant. You had sort of peasant people against peasant people of the land against people of the land, all living in the city, all facing the same many challenges and resistance to them as well.
And exploitation
of all of them. So they had so much more in common. If they'd been able to sit down and talk about how they were missing the old country, missing their parents, missing their grandparents, missing the old food that they couldn't quite get, it didn't taste quite the same in the new world, they would have had so much more in common.
And you
That's
talk
one of the
about
great tragedies.
You talk about the South as the old country for
Yes.
these black, then called colored
Yes.
immigrants as well. The reason I keep coming back to this is that this is exactly the same as the South. If the poor whites and the exploited blacks had been able to find commonality, they could have taken away. Everybody gets exploited and nobody is noticing that it's the man.
American history would be totally different. So much blood was shed over a basic misunderstanding.
Well, it's not a misunderstanding.
Of one
It's white supremacy. It's a basic premise. It's wrong.
still a misunderstanding, but and it is still current.
And it is still current.
We have people with large sums of money. The Koch Empire comes to mind, funding, among other things, the Tea Party movement, the Federalist Society, and other organizations whose function is essentially to continue to exploit those same divides.
So as to profit themselves.
Have we learned nothing? Is this why you wrote this book?
I would say, yes, we have learned not very much in this
On
time.
the other hand, we do have the opportunity, because people like you will do the work, and because we do have the internet, and because there are now alternate
we
ways
have fewer excuses than we used to. I mean, it used to be we could pretend. Now, the media has done an absolutely wretched job.
And we are all of it.
And it seems to get worse day by day. And there is information. There are books like yours. There are lots of sources if you want to go find them. The challenge, I think, is partly to get people to realize that there really is another perspective, which again goes to why what you did in making this personal is so important.
The Warmth of Another Sun is the wonderful book. I keep using that word. That Isabel,
we like it.
Yes, we do. Isabel Wilkerson has graced the world with a chance for us to get to know people who are the most famous people you've never heard of, as Bill sometimes says. Be with us when we return with her in a moment.